Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. May I have the roll call, please?
Chair McGill,
Present.
Vice Chair Clark, Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Lesnar Buxton,
Here.
Commissioner Nielsen, Commissioner Price,
Present.
Commissioner Ramsey.
All right, thanks very much. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Written public comment, we didn't get any written public comment within the deadline. There are a couple of, I guess, three emails that came just now for the trees on Roble. I've had a chance to take a quick look at them. You know, for future reference, they have to be in 24 hours in advance, right? I can't remember that, but it's, yeah. So I've taken a quick look at them. I know you haven't, Sebastian, you've seen them. We could just pass them down to Jacob. But those are is there anything else besides that? I hadn't seen anything in my email. Yeah, okay, great. All right, and then public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of public time for public comment will be 15 minutes. Those of you who are here to speak for an agenda item, for one of the tree items, that will come when we do that item. So this is for anything that's not agended. And I don't have any slips. Is there anybody online?
There are 3 people online. For those who wish to speak during public comment, please use the raise your hand functionality in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. For those who wish to speak on an agenda item later in the meeting, such as one of the tree items, please raise your hand when the item is under discussion. We have one. Oh, never mind.
Okay. Thanks. That raised hand can be kind of tricky. All right, that takes us to Commissioner Committee assignment reports. I'm going to start on my right with Commissioner Lesnar Buxton. Jacob.
Thanks. I attended arts and crafts, and they just worked on their progress and with a new potential vendor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Price.
Yes, I was not able to attend the Golf Course Advisory Committee, but I did connect with Tina Nelson, who gave me a great readout of what was discussed. The golf course, meaning municipal golf course, through May, which is the 11th month, has met its year-to-date budgeted and paid rounds and achieved 95% of its total annual revenue budget. June is currently forecasted to finish 5% ahead of budget. So costs are down, revenues are up, all is great. By the end of the financial year, the golf course is projected to exceed its total revenue budget by 5 to 6%. There's an additional item, which was a grant funding proposal. The Parks and Rec Department shared that it has been invited to apply for a $25,000 grant from the Outwythe Foundation to support the purchase of a clock for the golf course. The application is due July 25th with an award expected December 15th. The department requested that the Park Foundation serve as the nonprofit applicant, and if the grant is awarded, act as the fiscal sponsor for the funds. Tina was able to attend the Park Foundation board meeting to present the request, which was received with unanimous approval. It sounds like a really great thing they're trying to do here. And the department will submit the grant application by the deadline and await the decision in December.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, that golf course just keeps giving.
Absolutely.
What a great thing. Commissioner Aldana.
I did attend the groundbreaking event at Dwight Murphy Field. It was well attended. That's it for me.
Yeah, great, thank you. I was out of town, unfortunately, for that. I attended the Park Foundation meeting that was just referenced, and in addition to the clock, we continued to discuss the bandshell performances and the program for this summer. And that's that. So that takes us to commission and staff communications. Anything there? Director Diane?
No,
Okay.
none tonight, none for this week.
Okay, thanks. And then that brings us to ceremonial items.
No ceremonial
No,
items this
okay,
week either, this month.
All right. So then that takes us to the consent items. We have the summary of council actions for information. This is basically, this month was really just lease renewals, so I'm assuming that any questions or discussion, we'll move on to the minutes with the recommendation that the commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 28th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. And with that, I think we can go to a vote. I hope you were all here. Okay. We good with a 3-1? With just, I think, yeah, it's a majority with of who's present. All right, that takes us to the trees. Welcome, Mr. Slack. And we will start with Cliff Drive.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove a total of 23 trees. These are located all along Cliff Drive. And this is part of the Cliff Drive Vision Zero project. Consistent with other city-initiated projects, we've asked Public Works staff, we have Michelle Bedard, the project planner, and Alexis Lopez, a project engineer, here to do a brief presentation about the Cliff Drive Vision Zero project.
Perhaps we should take maybe a 3 or 4 minute recess.
It's okay.
That's okay, Jacob.
Yeah, hold on, we need them to come back.
Now reconvene, so.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. As Mr. Slack mentioned, my name is Michelle Bedard, Project Planner. I'll be giving a brief presentation of the Cliff Drive Vision Zero project. So just a real brief history. The project is the whole corridor of Cliff Drive from the west boundary along Arroyo County Beach Park to Castillo Street at the eastern corridor. This segment is also a very critical segment of we call it the missing gap of the regional 30-mile coast cycling network that allows people to bike ride from UCSB Goleta all the way down to Carpinteria and Ventura. So next slide, please. So for the enhancements along Cliff Drive, on this image you'll see the red and kind of tan color dashed is the proposed separated bike path along the whole corridor of Cliff Drive. And then a couple of the enhancements, we're doing 14 new crosswalks. Those are the what's listed in the black print along Cliff Drive. Those are the locations of new crosswalks. And then also we have, we'll be doing enhancements to the 4 existing crosswalks. Currently, there's only 4 existing crosswalks for the whole 3.1 mile corridor. With this project, there will be a total of 18 crosswalks throughout the corridor. The project also proposes to add 4 new traffic signals. And in this image, the traffic signal on the image with the white background are existing traffic signals, and with the tan background are proposed traffic signals. So in this image, the intersection at Camino Cama and Cliff Drive, that intersection will have a new traffic signal, as well as a mid-block traffic signal between Camino Cama and Meigs. And for the purposes of Cliff Drive vehicle travel, those will function primarily as green, but they will have pedestrian-activated rapid flashing beacons at the crossings, so it'll go red if people are trying to cross the street in the crosswalks or in the bike paths. Then the additional 2 new traffic signals are located at the east and west campuses of the City College campus. There's an existing signal at Loma Alta at the main campus, so we'll be adding new traffic signals to both the east and west campus entrances. And then this corridor also shown La Marina. There's no physical improvements proposed along La Marina. That is just where we're going to be adding the painted bike, we call them sharrows, on the street to just indicate to vehicles and cyclists that that'll be a shared connection between Cliff Drive and Shoreline Drive down along the waterfront. Okay, next slide. So this just real briefly, just to give you kind of a cartoon version of the picture, but for the most part, the new separated bike path will be along the south side of Cliff Drive. And that's what you see there on the image, the 2-way cycling network on the south side. Next slide shows the business corridor where we'll have the separated bike path on both sides of the street. And that will be starting at Salida del Sol on the easterly side, and then goes just beyond Flora Vista on the westerly side. And that's important for access between the commercial corridor districts. And it was something we heard from the received community feedback, that was a desire to have that, as well as serving the area's elementary schools, serving neighbors that may live on the south side of Cliff Drive that go to Monroe Elementary, for example. Next slide. So just some very brief design highlights. As you know, this project's been in the works for several years. We went to the community most recently back in earlier this month, first week of June. And some of the changes that were made from prior meetings, prior project designs, is really the main consideration is the whole path will now be separated bike path, separated from sidewalks as well as from vehicle travel lanes. There were some areas in the prior design that had some multi-use paths. So, but considering popularity of e-bikes on the roadway networks today, we thought it was an important consideration in alignment with our Vision Zero program that we have true separated sidewalks and bike paths. Then additionally, so we have some new enhanced crosswalks, again, as I mentioned briefly, but we're also doing enhancements at the bus stops, making the bus stops have a wider, safer feeling for people using the bus facilities, and then also some safety enhancements throughout the corridors. Next slide. Here's just a couple of the design considerations for quick view. In this instance, the larger image on the right shows this is a street level bike path that's separated by proposed new landscape planters that also give opportunity for new street parking, and then the vehicle travel lane, and then the separated sidewalk. And this is This is an indication, this is just south of Santa Cruz. And so this is an indication where the bike path is only on the south side of the street. And the lower image on the bottom indicates just some, it's difficult to view, but it's really just an indication of how we're getting those parking pockets and landscape planters. And then for this also, as we said, part of the importance of the Cliff Drive was originally designed as a highway design by Caltrans, formerly Highway 225. It was relinquished to the city, which gave us the opportunity to do this project. And the design, adding separated landscape planters gives us the opportunity to add new street trees along the corridor. It's in your application, but we're proposing approximately 70 locations for new street trees along the corridor, which will also give it a more of a transition from a highway design to a more neighborhood street-friendly feel. So next we'll just look at some briefly some of the renderings. The lower image on the lower left is the existing, and the larger image on the right is proposed. So this is in the commercial corridor. This is at the location of Camino Cama looking east. So that's where you'll see the bike lane again on both sides of the street and the new traffic signal at this intersection. Similar view, just looking west, just before Meigs, or just after Meigs in this case, looking west. And this image just gives you an idea again of the separated sidewalk, and we'll have a different treatment for the bike path to distinguish the sidewalk from the bike path. This is Cliff and Santa Cruz viewing east. So again, this is just crosswalk enhancements. This is a new crosswalk, again, a location where we're adding additional crosswalks throughout the Cliff Drive corridor, and then each non-signalized intersection will have a rapid pedestrian activated rapid flashing beacon. And in this image, you can also see the crossings at the intersection with the cyclists and the pedestrians. Cliff Drive viewing west is a similar image to what I was explaining in the last one, so I'll skip on. Next slide, thank you. Quickly looking at City College campus, this is West Campus viewing west. And so here again, you'll see the new bike path separated with the landscape planter, opportunity for new street trees, the crosswalk enhancements, and new traffic signal at this intersection. Main campus viewing east, this is a really great opportunity for some changes at the bus stop here. One of the key features in the design at this location, given this is such a heavily traveled and used bus stop, is that we're also in alignment with Vision Zero, really coordinating, kind of giving direction to transit users and pedestrians and separating them from the cycling path. So it's hard to see in this image, but just to the right of the landscape planter is a fence where the cyclists will travel, and then the transit users and pedestrians are on this street frontage and guided to the crossings at the intersections. Kind of an aerial view of the same thing. Kind of some key changes in this is that free right turn goes away. That's again in line with our Vision Zero program, just trying to eliminate incidences with pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles. We also are coordinating with Santa Barbara City College for have a project in plan for some on-site circulation changes, so we're in coordination with the City College as well. East Campus, viewing west, again, so new separated path on the south side, new crosswalks, and new street signal. Next. And then so that was a brief view of the proposed project, and then as we've discussed in our application, what we're kind of looking at doing is for the proposed landscaping, having landscaping in different sort of districts. So at the more westerly end, adjacent to the Douglas Family Preserve and Orobo County Beach Park, maybe more native feel landscaping versus maybe some in the residential zones, commercial zones, and adjacent to the City College, having kind of their own distinct feel and landscaping. So that's what this slide is indicating. Next slide. So for the application, we had our consultant arborist reviewed all of the existing trees within the project corridor. There's 322 existing street trees. Of that, 23 are proposed for removal from within the public right-of-way. As I mentioned earlier, the project team has identified potentially 70 new opportunities for tree planting opportunities. And as I briefly discussed, we look your feedback on the planting intent by area and the new tree species for Cliff Drive. Next. So now we'll just, these are all in your packet, but just go through these briefly. These are the trees proposed for removal. This is and this is kind of moving moving east from Arrowboro County Beach towards the eastern side. So this is the Mesa Shopping Center. Again, Mesa Shopping Center area. Just east of the Cliff Drive Meigs intersection. Wait, go back to one slide. Sorry, I just want to focus on tree number 122 real briefly. We did have a recommendation, as you're aware, from the Street Tree Advisory Committee, and they gave support for removal of the trees as requested, with the question to see if we could explore retaining this cork oak tree. And we did explore that. We talked to the project consultant design team, as well as working in continued collaboration with the the Santa Barbara MTD district, the bus stops. And because this is next to a bus stop and is very close to the intersection, unfortunately, it is just too close to the proposed new path improvements, and we're not able to save this tree at this time. And it would be just a safety issue if it was, we'd have to move the bus stop further back and closer to the intersection. And so unfortunately, this tree has to be removed as well. Moving along, just kind of jump through these. This is down closer to the City College, tree 245. All the trees previously were on the south side, and those last two were on the north side of the street. So that concludes our presentation. We look forward to we're here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bedard. I'm going to open it up to questions from the commission. I'm not going to, we don't get a chance to see these projects that often, so I'm not going to completely shut down general questions, because I know some people might be seeing it for the first time, but I do want to remind everybody that our actual remit, what we're actually here to talk about and opine on and approve, are the trees. So we have no purview over whether or not a crosswalk should go in somewhere, for example. So with that, well, I shut this down. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Okay. You did mention that potentially approximately 70 trees would be planted. Can you get a little, do you think we'll get 70 or 70 plus?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, I'd say at this point, if there's no general questions, we'll jump back into the application, the committee's review, and then that would be a good time to answer that question. But yeah, we're prepared to answer that question as well.
Okay.
And so if that's fine with everybody, I'll just segue back into the request to remove the 23 trees within the public right-of-way. So we looked at it during the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting. I think there was general consensus, similar with other, public infrastructure improvement projects from the committee's perspective, that it was significant gain community benefit, despite the impacts of losing, potentially 23 trees. I think their opinion was a sort of mixed bag. There was some nice ones in there, and some that probably weren't that nice, or in terms of value, size, and scale. I think as Ms. Bedard mentioned, there was a couple instances where it maybe hurt a little bit more to recommend to the commission to approve the removal, which was the cork oak, as well as the larger trees down, the cypress trees down by the college. Those were a little bit more straightforward. The realignment of the road and shifting of the path, it really didn't seem like there was a lot of feasibility. But they did ask us to work with Public Works, again, as the Public Works team mentioned, to look at the potential saving of the cork oak, and I believe the sidewalks 3 inches off base of tree, which is just really too close and requires too significant amount of root pruning, which we would consider detrimental, I think, even in a street tree scenario, especially given the bus stop and all of those things. And that was those were like the key factors, I think, when they looked at all the trees. I think they were really excited about the opportunity to plant 70 new trees. I think when we've looked at other projects that are in a design phase, almost like somewhat semi-conceptual, that you kind of have to get boots on the ground before you can like really dial in if there maybe it's going to be a conflict or not. So the proposal to plant 70 is where we're at. I think I speak even for Public Works that if we can get more, we would probably even add to that number. But based on how it's been laid out with sightline issues by transportation and the landscape architecture team that's been working on it, 70 is sort of the ballpark. And then that could, increase or decrease slightly. The committee, again, was supportive of that being like at a 3-to-1 ratio. And if before Chair McGill asked, they've already committed to 2 years of maintenance in the form of watering and establishment, so that's a really great thing. And I think, again, just to surmise, there was consensus that it was like a practical development of the property, significant gain benefit. I think the loss of trees is never something great, but I think the idea of like bringing the trees in closer, making the street more of like a street and less of a highway, more shade, reduction of heat island effect, those things were all seen as positives by the committee. And they recommended to the commission to approve the application as proposed.
Okay, great, thanks. And I obviously I apologize for jumping in and opening to questions prematurely. But, all right, so now that we have that, I'll open it up for questions. You did, the trees, when I did the move through it, I did it a couple times. I'd flagged trees 245 and 246 also as like, wow, these are kind of stately defining entrance type trees. And it's a shame that they are potentially going. And I guess in terms of, I've asked this question before in other projects, so I'll ask it. In terms of conditioning the approval, as you know, I'm not comfortable with as proposed if the actual proposal is kind of woolly, and in this case, potential for is woolly. So if we were to condition on a specific number, are you comfortable with 70, or would you want to go slightly south of that?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think we could probably feel pretty comfortable about
Okay.
that number.
Okay, thanks. Any general remarks?
Yes. I got-
Okay, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Okay, as far as a general question, and this is for Public Works, because you're going to have 4 new, I know it doesn't have anything to do with trees, but you're going to have 4 new signal lights, correct? And those there was a study, an analysis, and it was warranted?
Yes, thank you for the question, Commissioner Aldina. Our city's principal traffic engineer conducted those studies and determined that they were warranted. And
Thank you.
requested in many cases, especially at the city college entrances.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And my general question is, so are they going to be keeping bikes out of the car lanes as well as, 'cause I mean, those separations look great on paper. I'm just wondering of how that gets managed.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Chair McGill. That's kind of the million-dollar question, essentially. We can build these bike facilities, and it really comes down to the user, and in some cases, there might be more well-adversed, experienced cyclists that just prefer to share the road, and in that case, they're allowed to by state government code.
Yeah, thanks.
One other question came to mind on that. Okay, there's going to be different color, correct, on them? Should there be a delineator or something just to kind of keep the separation? Or
Commissioner, we are proposing just the visual difference in that area. It would all be the same level of concrete. Some areas we're actually exploring, I should correct myself, some areas we're actually exploring maybe a slight vertical difference in the sidewalk and the bike lane. So those are things that we're going to look at in final design with that project.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the only difference will be possibly the height of one.
Correct, yes. If you add a vertical element like that, it kind of just squishes everything and makes everything tighter.
And it's hard on bikes sometimes.
Yes.
All right, with that, I have 2 speaker slips. Those of you who came into the room after the meeting started, if you are here to speak on an agenda item, just be aware that we need to get a speaker slip filled out before that agenda item comes up. Just a process thing, and then you'll see how it works. Okay, so I've got 2 speakers, and I'm going to go in the order that I got them. And the first speaker is Isabel Payne. That's you, okay. And the way this works is that there's a clock that you'll be able to see, and when it starts, you will have 2 minutes. And welcome.
Hi, my name is Isabel, and I'm 15 years old. I live on Cliff Drive. I'm here today because I care a lot about the trees on our street, and I understand that the city plans to remove the existing trees on Cliff Drive as a part of the bike lane improvements, and I wanted to speak up before that happens. I know you're planning to plant new trees afterward, and I appreciate the effort to keep our city green, but I don't think it makes up for cutting down some of the larger, mature trees that we already have. These trees have been a part of the neighborhood for years, and they provide shade, beauty, and home for wildlife. And once they're gone, we can't get that back for a long time. Santa Barbara is known for protecting its environment and natural beauty, and the trees, plants, and ocean views are what make this city really special. Not just the people who live here, but for everyone who visits. Cutting down these trees goes against the values that make Santa Barbara what it is. And I hope you'll consider changing the plans so we can improve the bike lane without removing the larger existing trees. That would be a solution that reflects both safety and nature. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming in today to speak to us. I can't guarantee how this is going to go, and I think if you pay attention to this commission, you'll know that we strongly support our trees in Santa Barbara, and the Urban Forestry Department strongly supports trees too, and there's always this balancing act that you get to, which you'll probably hear in the discussion. But I really appreciate, I just love it when people that are starting out take the time to engage. So thank you, and I hope we see you again. Commissioner Price.
I actually wanted to ask a follow-up question, if you don't mind.
Come on up.
Yeah. So of the trees that we are proposing be removed, are there any that you feel should be taken into special consideration?
Yeah, there's one across the, what's the restaurant?
It's in front of the corner tab. There's a couple of really nice pine trees.
Yeah, pine trees.
They're really beautiful and been there for a long time.
And the one next to the bus stop, the larger cypress tree, or which,
That sounds like the cork oak.
the cork oak, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one?
The Canary Island pine.
Okay.
The olive, all the more mature ones.
Okay.
I hear a lot of birds living in them and stuff too, so,
Right.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we've heard about the cork oak. Do you have any comments that you care to make about the other trees? And it might also be a good time to remind the commission about what the ordinances are. I think there's state ordinances with respect to nesting birds and fledging in terms of tree removals.
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioners, I'll let the Public Works team weigh in on that. I think there's really tight spatial constraints there at that commercial district. But yeah, anytime that there's tree removals, especially on this type of scale, there's, Public Works and as well as the Parks and Recreation Department, there's always nesting bird surveys conducted. And I think anytime that we can coordinate work to just be outside of nesting cycles in general, that's always preferred, just in terms of general city policy.
Yeah, I think there's also an ordinance in terms of if there is a nest and waiting for fledge.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Migratory Bird Treaty
Yeah.
Act, and
Yeah.
it's essentially it's like from February to the end of September.
Yeah.
So it requires surveys before you can take trees out.
Okay, thank you. So I think that not everybody's familiar with that. All right, our second speaker is Christine Krieg. Do you want to speak? Okay.
Hi, my name is Christine Krieg. I don't have anything prepared. I just really found out about this just a day ago. I really didn't know about the big Cliff Drive plan. I wasn't around beginning of June, and it affects me greatly, so I just thought I should come in and kind of get to know everyone. The tree that I was talking about it's not so much the tree, it's more the corner. It's on Cliff Drive between Las Positas and Mesa Lane. I own the property that's down below that, so we have a big, huge hedge all along there, and I also my residence is at 2509 Cliff Drive. So I'm very excited about a lot of these changes, because obviously we've almost been hit, a car's been hit, so I think the whole plan is great, but I just was a little shocked. I'm not so concerned with tree 69 as I am that whole corridor. I planted that when I was 12 years old, so it's 50 years old. And there's lots of vegetation, and I'm just not understanding right now how much that path is going to go into all of that. So perhaps I could speak with Michelle. Okay, at some point, I'd like to get some more info. I don't know how big the easement is. My father built it, and it's, I don't know. So my biggest concern is that the property drops down. So it's not so much that one tree that just for privacy and all that, but I'm really concerned that if cars coming up Cliff Drive, if they are going fast and they come up and over, I understand now there'll be rails and all of that, but there are 12 little houses down in there. And we have had, in the last 20 years, on the corner of Mesa Lane and Cliff Drive, we've had at least 3 cars come barreling in there. I even put some yucca trees in there just to make them stop, or they would have gone in. So it's not so much that one tree, it's just my concern is what's going to happen with all the vegetation there, not only privacy, but to have a walkway, with everyone looking down into that hillside. So I just wanted to get to know everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. So what I'm going to suggest, since we're well outside of the purview of what we're here to do with this, is you can shake hands, and I think if you liaise directly with Public Works, and you can get your questions answered and get your feedback in. Okay, thanks. So, all right, with that, I'm going to open up for discussion, motions as
Chair
a.
McGill?
We do have
Is there
someone.
anyone online that
Oh,
wants to
I'm
speak?
sorry. Terribly sorry. Thank you.
Yes, we do have one hand raised, Kara Otto. When I call on you, please unmute yourself, and you will speak for 2 minutes.
Greetings. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I am also newer to this issue, but I wanted to point out some of my observations of what I've learned so far. The missing piece for me was actually pointed out by my 13-year-old friend about the consideration of wildlife when mature trees are replaced with immature trees. I have a history of volunteering with the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center off of Fairview. I've also lived on the Mesa for several years. And some of the key issues that I see here is these mature trees that are at risk are actually inhabited by wildlife, which will be displaced because it will take quite some time for immature trees to reach maturity. And I'm also seeing in the plan the placement of some of the newly proposed trees, which it's great that there could be so many, but down the center of a boulevard is not really inhabitable for a lot of wildlife that will be displaced by the current plan. And another thing is when we, kind of reduce from mature trees to immature trees, it greatly reduces the amount of shade in addition to compromising wildlife. Many, many years ago, I lived at 3rd Street, 3 blocks from the water in Santa Monica, which was a concrete jungle because they removed so many of their mature trees and greenery. And it was one of the hottest places I've ever lived. 3 blocks from the ocean in Santa Monica. So I don't want the same thing to happen here in Santa Barbara, where we kind of get used to taking out the old and moving in the new. So I think there has to be kind of a balance piece in this plan that looks more at the consideration of where are the wildlife supposed to go during this lapse. It's a lot of wildlife that could be displaced by this. And then also, what are we supposed to do with, kind of the aesthetic and the comfortability of the city as a whole by changing it so much through the removal of these mature trees? Love and support the idea of a bike path and increased safety, but I think we have to also see human well-being and human health as on par and equal to environmental health. And I know that we do value that, but I think I need to see more of that in this plan. So those are just some of the blind spots for me right now. Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Thank you very much. Mr. Slack, could you comment on I guess I would say the percent reduction in overall canopy that you expect to see with these removals? Obviously, not roughly, and those impacts in terms of canopy and perhaps also the size of trees that would be put in. I don't know, maybe it's Ms. Bedard, and time to maturity. So just the general concern about big trees being replaced by little trees.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, I don't think that we could accurately say what the spatial loss of canopy cover is. I think if you're able to do a site visit, you're able to gauge the varied sizes throughout the project scope. In terms of replacements, I think given the busy nature of it, we probably would use something maybe a little larger, like a 24-inch box, just because it's a little bit more resilient. As we'll look at later during the discussion of tree items, we also talked about tree species, and so there's a lot of really exciting, good selections that will actually achieve much greater overall size than a lot of the existing trees. So I think while it's hard to analyze and say specifically the immediate canopy loss in what's being proposed as part of this project, the net gain is significant, but it's pretty difficult to go much further than that in detail.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I thought you were going to say, but want to just get it out there. So I will open it up for discussion or a motion. Maybe the discussion has already happened largely. Commissioner Aldana?
Yes, regarding general question, then we'll get back to the trees.
Yeah, it's time to go to the trees.
Okay, as far as parking spaces, how many spaces were eliminated?
Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. Let me take a peek at my notes. I was not prepared with that answer at the top of my head. I know it. Give me a moment.
We can always do that offline, too.
No, I have it. Let me see.
Why don't we take that offline and you can just get back to us?
Okay, I actually have a quick answer.
Okay.
Okay, so there's existing 188 along the whole corridor. That's existing parking, excluding bus stops and red curb areas. There's 79 on the north side, and those will all remain. There will be no reduction on the north side. As mentioned, primarily the bike path will be on the south side of the street. This net reduction overall is 46 spaces on the south side. We did do a parking analysis, parking study. Staff counted all the spaces, and then we went out at various times and locations and did a parking count at various times and locations, and the proposed number of parking spaces that we observe, or that are proposed, exceeds the demand. And the highest demand that we noticed was, sorry, I'm going from memory, I want to say 131 on noon on Sunday, and the lowest demand was 79 at 4 p.m. on Sunday.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to open up for discussion and or motion related to trees only.
Chair McGill, someone did just raise their hand online for comment. Are we still open for comment?
I've closed comments,
Okay,
yeah, thank you. Commissioner Price.
So I thank you very much for this proposal. I think it's extremely thoughtful. In the vein of and the theme of what I've seen from Public Works and the Parks Commission as well, the Parks Department as well, you've obviously given a lot of consideration to removing trees, changing the landscape, and what it means to live for the people in the city to live with our environment. I think a lot of my questions will actually be answered toward the end of the agenda when we start talking about the proposed designation. So thank you very much.
Okay, after hearing the public comment, Regarding the trees, is there a possibility of any adjustment?
Commissioner, we did look at the cork oak, so that one we determined could not be saved, just due to the proximity of the new sidewalk in that area. In regards to the two trees near that corner at Meg's, that corner tap, those trees unfortunately are within the bike limits, and so there is not a possibility. We're too constrained in that area to be able to save them.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, just in the interest of moving along. And I'm going to say to all the speakers, I really appreciate, we've had this, we did Milpas not that long ago, and that this becomes a very difficult balancing act. And what persuades me is that there's just certain streets in the city that have a lot of different, they are multi-use roads and they are dangerous. And Cliff Road is dangerous. I go up and down it all the time, on foot and in a car. And I find it, the three trees that we've talked about the most, 245, 246, and 122, kind of pain my heart. But at the same time, I look at the totality of it. It's a small percentage overall, which I know took a lot of work to get it to be a small percentage overall. I know that that's not happenstance, because I know these departments. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the proposal to remove the 23 various trees from Las Positas Road to West Montecito Street on the condition that at that 70 trees or more, but at least 70 replacement trees are planted and the 2-year watering commitment is honored.
Commissioner McGill, I believe the total's 23, is that correct?
23 are being removed. Did I say something else?
I heard 22.
Okay, it's
No?
20, yes, it should be 23.
Okay.
And 70 replacement and 2-year watering.
I'd like to second.
Okay? We have a motion, we have a second. With that, we will take it to a vote.
Okay, one question for discussion.
Okay?
Were we going to include the size? Because there was this conversation of making a 24, making a bigger trees in some areas. Do you want to include that in your motion?
I wasn't going to, because I know that box size is a difficult one, because sometimes smaller trees do better. So I was going to leave that to urban forestry.
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, I think if you're comfortable with that, I think, it's staff's desire to use 24s. There may be opportunities to use smaller trees where we, have a little bit more space, or it's a little less kind of intense in terms of just that's a vandalism and how busy the area is. But I think you have our staff's commitment to do a minimum of 24-inch box replacement trees. And we really, I think, would advise against going larger than that for some of the reasons we've discussed previously with performance long-term.
Got it.
Okay. All right, let's bring this to a vote. And, all right, it passes. So before you all leave, I just want to read the appeal language. You have the right to appeal this decision, and
Chair
it...
McGill, I don't believe the vote showed up on the
Oh, I saw it. It just showed up quickly, but I did
Okay.
see it.
Okay.
Or I made it up, but I'm sure I saw it. Okay, I have a witness. Okay, any action of the Parks and Recreation Commission made pursuant to Santa Barbara Municipal Code, Chapter 1520, tree planting and maintenance, may be appealed to the City Council within 10 days pursuant to provisions of Section 130.050 of the Municipal Code. So if you want to appeal, you do that to City Council, and they're the final authority, and you need to do it within 10 days. Okay, thank you very much. And that takes us to Franceschi.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, Holly Garson is going to join Nathan Slack for this item. Holly joined the department 3 months ago. 3 months ago, she took over the position that Sean Stewart held before he left the city. We're fortunate to have Holly. She actually came over to us from the Community Development Department and has many, many years of planning experience. So she has a number of projects that Sean had, plus will be engaged in new projects in her role as a project planner for the department.
Well, welcome.
So, yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioners, as Ms. Zachary mentioned, this is we're calling this Project 1501 Franceschi Road, but I think you'll know it more as like the Franceschi House revitalization or reimaging project. There's a total of 5 trees being proposed for removal as part of this project. The first slide shows 3 of those. There's 2 river red gums. One is actually up near the parking lot, and the other's very close to the home. There's a lemon scented gum that's in the sort of the patio area just below the parking lot. And then there's 2 pittosporums that are kind of nestled back behind the property. And Ms. Garson's going to kind of walk you through the project.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slack and Director Zachary. Hello, Commissioners. Holly Garson, Project Planner with Parks and Rec Department. I'm here to briefly sort of touch on what Mr. Slack just stated with the requested tree removal located at Franceschi Park. And this is to facilitate what we do call the reimagination of Franceschi House project. So this is a larger discretionary land use project. We're currently in the planning entitlement process with the city's Community Development Department. And for the benefit of the commissioners who may be newer to the commission, I do encourage you all to please review the comprehensive project update that was provided on August 28th, 2024, if you have not done so already. And we will return with this project to the commission at a later time for action and discussion. Thank you. The Franceschi House and Park consists of 4 lots, total 17 acres on the Riviera. It's designated as an open space park, and it features walking trails, there's landscape, beautiful panoramic views of the city. Special events and private events are not permitted at this site, so we're not proposing any changes to that as part of the project. The project area specifically is limited to just where the house is located, about under 1 acre. And here you can see the Upper Franceschi Park location. The house is in the center, bisected by Mission Ridge Road, and then the Lower Franceschi Park area. On July 23rd, 1980, the city designated the house a structure of merit. So here's the photo of the house. You're probably familiar. The house and park do have a lot of history. There have been many public engagements and efforts toward exploring restoration of the house over the past decades. However, ultimately in 2018, the commission and the city council voted to direct the department to explore or to pursue demolition of the residence and explore a replacement project of interpretive project. And after nearly 2 years of public engagement and working on a concept design, today the department is working toward the goal of obtaining all necessary land use permits, including design review, environmental review, post-entitlement permits. We're currently in the beginning stage of the planning permit process, so we submitted to the Community Development Department in April. We received comments in May, so we're working as a team to respond to those comments and corrections and get a resubmittal back into the city. The project will honor the past horticulture legacy and historic significance associated with the land by providing new landscaping, park user interpretive learning opportunities. We're increasing accessibility, sustainability, and fire resilience. And we're, of course, enhancing the reason why most people enjoy the park is to see the view. Here's a conceptual rendering on the screen looking out towards Santa Barbara and the Channel Islands. As Mr. Slack stated, demolishing the house really does require removing a few trees on site, 3 eucalyptus and 2 pittosporum. The 5 trees are identified in red on this site plan, and the approximate location of the house is outlined in blue on this site plan. So you can see some of those trees slated for removal are pretty close to the residence that will be coming down. Here are photos of the trees proposed for removal: the eucalyptus, the pittosporum in the center, and lastly, the eucalyptus. There are 15 trees within the project area that are proposed to remain. 3 of these were introduced by Dr. Franceschi. Shown on the screen, we have the Watkins fig, the grass tree, and the Canary Island date palm. As currently designed, the conceptual landscape palette for the project consists of plants introduced to California by Dr. Franceschi, as well as drought-tolerant varieties. And the proposed replacement trees consist of 7 specimen trees, 5 shade trees, 4 island oaks, and 1 Santa Cruz ironwood. So 17 new trees are proposed as part of the project. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item.
Thank you very much. All right, I will open it up for questions. Okay, I got one. So I'm looking at, and this is, I'm thinking about this application in the context of other applications that we get all the time. So this is probably going to end up being a question for Mr. Slack. So I'm looking at the write-up, and it's the removal of the 3 mature non-native eucalyptus trees, and I understand this being a reasonable and practical development for sure. But they're talking about the 3 existing eucalyptus trees are extreme fire risk to the existing and proposed project park and predominantly hillside residential neighborhood due to the high flammability and tendency to topple over. So my question and maybe concern is that in our conversations, my understanding is not all eucalyptus are created equal, and that maybe, is this correct to refer to these trees as all being that dangerous? And I'm really thinking ahead to future and also past proposals that we've had.
And Chair McGill, Commissioners, I think in the context of the review by the committee, that wasn't a focal point of the discussion. I don't think that they see it as strongly as like the memo indicated. The Franceschi site, the park, is within a high fire hazard area, so I think there is more concern there. But I think for the review, it was not discussed at all. And I think from your perspective, it's accurate that they really, of the reasons why you would probably remove those, that's not a huge priority, if that's answering your question.
Yeah, it is, and because if with, I may have my species wrong here, but my understanding is that the toppling issue is really more of the blue gum issue with the shallow roots, and the others are better behaved. Am I remembering that right, or do I have my species wrong?
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioners, I think generally that's certainly the committee's perspective, that the blue gum eucalyptus is problematic. We've seen that one previously. We've seen denials of others. And I think generally that's sort of the commonly accepted opinion, that of the eucalyptus, that seems to be the most challenging. That doesn't mean that all blue gums just will fall over or cause problems either, but there also is a lot more of them. So I think in scale, that's one of the reasons why blue gum has a bad reputation too, just because of the proliferation of them throughout, Southern California.
Yeah, and the reason I'm probing this is I'm just concerned that the language we use in any approval that we give, that we're not then also stating that we think that any gum tree in the Riviera needs to come down.
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioners, I think if the commission feels strongly about that, then I would just make that part of the motion and just highlight the rationale that does support the removals.
Yeah, that was my intent, but I just really wanted to make sure I had my ducks in a row in understanding.
Yeah, Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think the memorandum that was prepared associated with the application really speaks primarily to the reason for their removals, such that they are in the pathway of project site improvements.
Right, yeah.
Most specifically, the accessible path of travel that will be constructed from the parking lot to the house. Right now, there does not exist one. And then also in the vicinity of the house itself, where we plan to build the view terrace. The fact that they are non-native and also not acceptable in the high fire area also contributes to they're not exactly the most desirable species to have in this particular location. There are, I don't know how many eucalyptus trees in Franceschi Park, many.
Yes.
And through our wildfire resiliency project, we are, as part of looking at all of our open spaces, identifying opportunities to phase this species out and introduce more native, acceptable trees in high fire areas. But that is something that will occur over many, many years. So there's a variety of ways of looking at this. It's not that we just want to take it out because we're afraid it'll cause a fire. It's actually very specific to the project. It's also not the desirable tree in this location.
Yeah, and I just think we need to structure the language carefully, yeah. Any other questions? I have no speaker slips. I'm moving right along here. I have no speaker slips. Is there anybody online?
Anyone who would like to speak on this particular item, 1501 Franceschi Road, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself. There's no hand raised.
Okay, so with that, I would like to open it up for discussion or motion. Commissioner Price?
Motion to accept the proposal as proposed.
I'll second.
All right, and I would like to supplement that. Well, we need a finding, and we don't need a finding?
Chair McGill.
Are they street trees?
Yeah, technically, they're on public property. We would consider them street trees regulated by Chapter
Okay.
15, subsection 20,
Okay.
so no findings necessary.
Okay.
If you want to add one, you can, but it's not critical.
Well, I just want to clarify that it's the reasonable and practical development, and that's the key finding.
Yeah, and I think that can be part of the motion without being like an actual finding.
Okay,
And Chair
are you guys
McGill.
all right with that?
And Commissioners, this project will come before the commission where you will be making findings on the project itself, which really has to do with neighborhood compatibility, appropriateness for the site, and so on and so forth. So you have a future opportunity to make findings associated with this project.
All right, thank you. Okay, I think we have a motion, I think we have a second, so we can vote. All righty, we definitely have it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Weldon Road.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove a blue gum eucalyptus located within the front setback of the property at 920 Weldon Road. The applicant listed a few different reasons on the application for removal. It included safety concerns, stating the tree had a lean on the property on a hill slope. The lean was towards voltage lines on the other side of Weldon Road, and they also made reference to just, I would call it a general decline in health. They submitted a brief arborist report as well that kind of alluded to the tree maybe not being in the best of health. The committee reviewed the application, the report, and also the tree on site. There was consensus that it was probably in fair health. The canopy was starting to become fairly sparse. I think consistent with some of the comments from Chair McGill and obviously previous reviews that we've had, this was very similar to multiple recent applications involving blue gums and maybe not being in the best of health and having some other present issues that could be concerns for like total tree failure. I think that there was discussion regarding the health of the tree and some of the merits of the arguments made on the application. There was There was agreement that the committee could support the removal. I think, again, given some of the key talking points that we keep seeing with the blue gum and its potential for failure impacting the roadway, the utility lines, and just its general overall health. The committee discussed whether a replacement tree was necessary. There was agreement that if this tree were to be removed, that it should be replaced. During discussions for replacement size, there was agreement that it should be a tree that could achieve a mature height of 40 feet. And after review and discussion, the committee made a recommendation to the commission that to approve the removal of the blue gum eucalyptus at 920 Weldon Road on the condition that a replacement tree be planted that can achieve 40 feet in height at maturity, and that the commission could make the finding that the principles of good forest management dictate the removal.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Slack? Going once, going twice. I have no speaker slips. Is there anybody online?
Anyone who'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. No hands raised.
Okey doke. With that, I will open it up for discussion or a motion as appropriate.
I'll go with the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Aldana?
Okay, to agree with the street tree committee, to approve the removal on the condition that the applicant plant a replacement tree on the property that can achieve 40 feet in height.
And the rationale? or
And
the-
for the good forest management.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to second.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and take that one to a vote. All right, thank you very much. Now that takes us to Roble.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove 10 queen palms located within the front setback of the property at 1009 Roble Lane. The applicant was requesting removal of the trees due to concerns with failure, stated issues with tree failure, and I believe to some extent, while not directly stated, just debris-related issues with palm fronds dropping, on cars, et cetera. The committee reviewed the application. We reviewed the trees on site. The committee found the trees to be reasonably maintained, healthy, and given relatively, younger age and smaller scale, they, specifically the arborists on the committee, commented that they posed very little risk. And during discussion, they determined no findings could be made that could support the removal and recommended that the commission deny the application to remove the 10 queen palms located at 1009 Roble Lane.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? Okay. Have you seen, we got 3 letters handed to us just at the beginning of the meeting, so I'm guessing you haven't seen them. So there is one, and I don't know whether it would be Mr. Slack or Ms. Jack Zachary. You haven't seen them either? Yeah, they just got handed to us and so technically we didn't need to read them, but we did. But there's a question, one of the letters says that there is an ordinance, the right to the scenic view and sunlight access. Basically, it's a municipal code 227620, a right to a scenic view. In the past, when we've looked at trees, that has not been the case. Would one of you care to comment on that?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, so that municipal code section is formally referred to as the View Dispute Resolution Ordinance. And just generically speaking, regulated trees, meaning public trees and trees in the setback, are not subject to the provisions of that. That also is a path for 2 private property owners to embark upon And in this situation, removal would still have to be, approved by the commission before it could be obtained, even if two property owners were utilizing that process.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. I just wanted to get that clarified. Commissioner Price?
Yes, one of the items that was brought to our attention was the potential flammability of these trees. Could you comment about, to the best of your knowledge, where it fits in our high fire areas and the flammability of these what seem to be healthy trees?
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, I think, kind of building upon the great presentation we heard last month from the fire marshal, when we look at this situation from a flammability perspective, it's a well-maintained landscape. You don't have this fuel ladder. That's really the concern when we're talking about trees. So you have reasonably healthy, what we would call hydrated trees, meaning they're green, not dead, and there's no like fuel ladder. Like if say those trees had ivy growing up all of the stems, and that ivy was maybe not super healthy, that would be a clear path of travel potentially for flames to move up, and then you could get it into the canopy. But in this situation, it would be deemed very low risk.
And for anybody listening or in the room, of which there's not many, I highly recommend going back to last month's meeting and listening to the fire marshal's presentation. It was excellent and very, very informative.
I would like to add to that, we were also made aware of the Firewise Cities program, which if there's a concern about, looks like homeowners insurance here, that would be a great resource to, the state of California actually partners with them and homeowners for benefit to the homeowner.
All right, back to Roble here. You're right, thank you. I do, if there's no other questions, I have a speaker. Is it Kel? Okay, Kel Ryan, and you come up, you've seen how the process works. It's going to be the same for you.
I'm speaking on behalf of two parties in the Roble neighborhood. Does that
You still have 2
matter?
minutes, yeah.
Okay.
When you're ready.
Okay, I'm here on behalf of Carol Sebitz. She's the property owner of 1009 Roble Lane. This is her letter. I'm just here on her behalf. My name is Carol Sebitz. I'm the property owner at 1009 Roble Lane in Santa Barbara. I'm writing this request in consideration of my previous request to replace 10 queen palms in the city setback abutting my property. I would like to remove these palms and replace them with smaller ornamental pears, which will reduce the risk of fire injury, property damage, and not block my neighbor's view. The city arborist recently evaluated the trees and deemed them healthy. However, my primary concern is the unnecessary hazard created by the trees, regardless of whether or not they are healthy. In the 30 years that I've lived here, since we planted them, from 5-gallon cans, they have grown quite large, and the fronds and fruit balls that fall from the trees damage cars, tile roofs, and create a hazard during large wind events. The neighbors gather around to clean all this up, and it's a constant thing, it sounds like. During frequent heavy winds that hit our area, the fronds easily could actually injure someone. They have damaged cars and homes. Because the variety of the tree is known to have shallow root systems, the entire tree is susceptible to this. You guys talked about the fire hazards, so I'm not going to rehash that too much. She does have a concern about that, and you saw the letter. In addition to these being hazardous, these palms block the views of my neighbors across the street. I provided you guys with the photos of those, and they cited the section that you guys talked about, and so they would like to remove these trees, plant them with ornamental pears, and not block anyone's view or have hazards.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you very
sure.
much. All right. Care to comment on the shallow roots? Sorry.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, I think that, In general, queen palms are pretty stable. Root systems are always shallow. It's not a species that has like a failure pattern that, where you see a lot of like total stem failure. It's not really very applicable in terms of like a rationale for removal.
Yeah. And I guess just for the clarity too, and we see a lot of applications involving, well, every tree litters, basically. Every tree has its thing that it sheds. And consistently, that leaf litter, fronds, berries are not considered grounds for removal. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any trees left. Commissioner Price.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Slack, would you mind commenting on the proposed decorative pear replacement? I'm curious if that's native within the designation. Any color you have on that would be appreciated.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, we don't have any like hard, fast designations when it's a tree on a private property. I did neglect to mention that I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Kell, and he did explain that the property owner was willing to replace the trees. We did have that discussion with the committee. I think their general comments were that of the trees that were there, if you look at the evergreen pear, which is a shade tree, and we've had lots of conversations about the values of palms and shade trees, that in time the evergreen pears likely would cause more of a view-related issue and be subject to probably more aggressive and probably bad pruning as a result of them being, bigger, wider spreading shade trees than the queen palms. But I think at its core, as the staff report says, there just was no finding, during the review that supported the removal from the committee's perspective.
Okay, thank you. With that, I think unless is there any more discussion, we can go to a motion if somebody is prepared to make one. Oh, we have someone on the line. I'm sorry. I'm not doing very well with that today. Thank you.
And Victoria and Frank, they do have their hand raised. So when I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Victoria Sung, along with my husband Frank Hu. We are residents of 1018 Roble Lane, across the street and one house over from the applicant. We are fully in support of the removal of the many palm trees at 1009 Roble Lane. In addition to the excessive amount of palm leaf litter, I mean, this is not regular tree leaves that fall down. These are massive fronds that fall and can hit things and damage things. And we nearly, averted being hit by one just a month ago. The large number of palms on such a small front yard space presents a visual barrier, and it contradicts the Santa Barbara City Ordinance, which you previously stated, to our right of a scenic view and sunlight access. So without going into the details of that ordinance, we have seen our city and ocean view being more and more obstructed by the growth of these palm trees, with the eventuality of facing a palm tree curtain in front of us. So we urge you to allow the removal of these fast-growing and invasive palms and allow our neighbors to replace them with something that's just more appropriate to the yard space. I mean, you cite 10, but I've counted 12 on this very small space. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right. That close it out? Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so I think we've addressed the ordinance already. And litter is litter. I think we're at the point, if somebody's prepared to make a motion, we should make a motion. All right, I will make a motion, and I am going to go ahead and move, recognizing all the issues, honestly, but given that they are healthy and not necessarily, as healthy trees, not necessarily a fire risk, and the viewscape is not a grounds in this situation, I'm going to go ahead and recommend that we agree with the tree committee and deny the removal of the queen palms at 1009 Roble Lane.
I'd like to second.
All right. If we have no further discussion,
Yeah, I have one.
okay, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yeah, regarding queen palms, as I remember in other discussions, there's very little or no value to these trees, correct? Because I remember various queen palms were recommended and approved to be removed from De La Guerra Plaza. And so basically my question is, there's really no value, right? No shade value, no value to a queen palm.
Chair McGill, Commissioner O'Donnell, I think when we look at previous reviews and certain conversations that we've had, kind of shade tree versus palm, the environmental benefits of a shade tree are more significant than a palm tree. I think, like for De La Guerra Plaza, for example, that was like a development of property that dictated the removal. I think when you look sort of like apples to apples comparison, and Chair McGill points this out a lot in terms of consistency, and I think I would go back just to the commission or the committee's review, and that there's just not simply a finding that supports this specific application, whereas there certainly could be applications in the future that, say they were redeveloping the property and they were realigning a driveway or something like that. I think that certainly would fall under like something that the committee would recommend removal on, but just removal of them, just kind of substituting out something, the committee just determined that there was no finding to support it. And I think just generically speaking, they may not provide as much environmental value, but sort of beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Aesthetics are important too. So there is some value to palms in general, I think. But environmentally speaking, they definitely are inferior to shade trees.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's always that balancing act again. Yeah. All right. I think we've got a motion, we've got a second. We should go ahead and take a vote. Where are we? All right. The motion passes. You heard the appeal language. Mr. Ryan, you heard the appeal language, so I'm happy to read it again, but basically you've got, or the owner's got, or whoever, has got 10 days to appeal to City Council, and they are the final decision makers. Okay. Thank you. All right, that takes us to the tree designations for Cliff.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is street tree species designation change. This is for all of Cliff Drive. So we're sort of bookending the recommendations from the committee we started with Cliff Drive, we're finishing with Cliff Drive. So these were handled together, essentially. As the project team from Public Works pointed out, there's robust replanting plans, and there is sort of a concept that helps to tie together the project that the landscape team developed that has these sort of zones. So you kind of, and I think if you travel Cliff Drive enough, or if you know it, there are these like sort of key zones. There's this college area, and there's the commercial zone, and then as you get down towards like Elings and Las Positas, it definitely kind of gets more of a not very developed feel. So the hope was to come up with new species designations that are more updated. There were sort of a hodgepodge of previous designations for certain blocks. We took a different approach in this specific instance and rather than try to be designers, looked at what was provided in terms of like the proposed species palette, looked at the merit of those trees as they relate to just planting and performance and suitability for use, and discussed what was proposed. I should say that staff had the opportunity to work with the landscape architect team on several intervals to try to get to something that made more practical sense for our uses before the committee reviewed it. As it was provided, there was general agreement and consensus that most of the species proposed were suitable, and some were seen as very favorable selections. The only one that didn't really sort of make the cut was the western redbud that was originally proposed for use. It's enticing because it's the native redbud. I think a lot of times we're used to seeing the eastern redbud, which is more of a tree. The western redbud tends to be smaller and more of a shrub. And so those were comments from some of the committee members expressing concern that while it's a cool little plant, its placement next to a roadway and a bike path may not be ideal. You know, we kind of want that really tall single stem with, you know, high or very high lowest permanent branch height, we would call it. So rather than keep the western redbud, the committee suggested substituting it for the crepe myrtle. And then after further review and discussion, essentially made a recommendation to approve this list of 11. I'd be happy to read them all if you want, but you know, and again, I think the intent is these would be designations for all of Cliff Drive. It gives us the option to sort of plug and play as necessary. And it also gives the design team a little bit of creativity, you know, because I think like as arborists, you know, and as staff, we're more concerned about the nuts and bolts and functionality of it. And we feel here that we've got a really solid list of trees. So we don't really care as much about, you know, how many are in a row or which zone that they fall in. So it gives the design team a lot of flexibility. And then years down the road, we have a really great deep list to be able to utilize, you know, for future replacements or extra tree planting opportunities.
That's it? Great, okay, thanks. They're great, there's some great trees on that list. Any questions I see, Commissioner Price?
My goodness gracious. All right. Mr. Slack, the young lady brought up the Canary Island pine. I don't believe that's on your list. Is that correct?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, that is correct.
Would you care to comment on why it's not included?
I think we're not seeing a lot of designations of conifers in general. You can go out there and those look pretty healthy, and you can find healthy ones around town. As we talked about with the stone pines, and we've lost other Canary Island pines throughout the community, I think as the environment continues to change and we get drier and drier, some species are just falling out of favor. Not to say that they can't be performers, just that they may not make practical sense, like sort of for the next generation of street trees. So I think that's kind of where Canary Island pine falls for us. I would say to a broader extent, most conifers don't really fall in terms of like a favorable selection moving forward. So that's why, you know, you've got a lot of large canopy shade trees here. That was the focus of the designations.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? I don't have any. I have no speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
No, Chair McGill, there's no one online.
Okay, thank you. I remembered it this time. With that, if there's no further discussion, is there somebody prepared to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, to agree with the committee, Street Tree Committee, that the commission change the designation to include the following 11 species for all of Cliff Drive, which include the coast live oak, strawberry tree, the highland oak, paperbark, cork oak, Engelmann oak, silverleaf oak, Is this correct? Yes, I guess so, huh? California sycamore, coast live oak, golden medallion tree, crepe myrtle, and jacaranda.
I would like to second.
All right. If there is no further discussion, we've got a motion and a second. I will go ahead and bring it to a vote.
Okay, but, all right. On this right here, we have 11 trees. I counted these trees. There's 12.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, you've caught me. Coast Live Oak is on there twice. We found it afterwards and made the
Okay.
slide correct.
All right.
So what happened was Coast Live Oaks proposed for use in 2 separate zones, and I copied and pasted. And
Honest
I
mistake.
apologize.
Okay.
Boy,
11
we're getting
species.
nitpicky today.
At least you didn't use AI. Thank you.
And you know we read.
Do I need to repeat the motion, or you got it?
All right. All
Okay.
right. We'll use a lot of Coast Live Oaks. All right. All right, I think we can take for a vote. All righty, and the motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Slack. See you next month. And that takes us to the final item on the agenda, which is the director's report.
Chair McGill, commissioners, summer has officially started. Kids are out of school. Lots of things are going on. But first, I want to just share with you, which I think many of you are familiar with, the department has made great strides in supporting landscapes, rebuilding landscapes to support pollinators. We also became a Bee City USA affiliate about 7 years ago. What that means is we spend time ensuring that the work that we do in our parks and open spaces support pollinator habitat. May be familiar with there being great concern over the demise of bees and the lack of pollinator habitat for bees. I think you could say that for any number of insect and or bird species and wildlife. It all's interconnected. So just want to share with you that we take our work effort seriously. This month, we had National Pollinator Week, which a variety of activities happen all over the nation. And although we don't have very specific activities, we use it as an opportunity to look back and see what we've done and what we're doing and move forward. And something that we share with our IPM Advisory Committee as well. And then, as I mentioned, we're a Bee City USA. We have to reapply every year, so we're actually in the process of getting recertified, which is kind of like our Tree City USA certificate process, which we've had for many, many decades as well. And as part of that, we count what we've done in our park system to support habitats. And if we look at some of the things that we've done, even landscape renovations at the Cabrillo Pavilion, you would think, oh, how does that do that? But they think strategically about the plants that are planted and how they'll support pollinators. And then, as I mentioned earlier, to our IPM program, the fact that all of our parks are designated green. And we work closely with our IPM Advisory Committee if we are to seek an exemption for a very specific purpose in order to achieve an outcome. Sometimes it's an ecological outcome if it has to do with dealing with invasive species, and sometimes it has to do with a significant pest issue. The golf course being a primary example of where we have to actively manage that landscape in order to provide that kind of recreation amenity. And then we use the opportunity in the report to talk about what other organizations are doing. There is a great Green Gardener program. City College has a horticulture program. So when you take it as a whole, the community is really striving towards these outcomes. More specifically to what's happening in city parks is next week, we kick off our concert series in Chase Palm Park. It's the 24th season, which is really hard to believe because, you sort of forget. Now you're really, wow, it was that long. We have 4 concerts this year. They're all on Thursdays. And they're from 5 to 7:30 p.m. We have an opening act and then a specific act that starts at 6 o'clock with Molly Ringwald Project this week. And then you can see in your staff report the other performers that will be happening in subsequent weeks. very, very popular. I think we probably estimate more than 10,000 people enjoy free concerts in the park every single year. And it's a great way to spend a Thursday afternoon and early evening. Similarly, with the renovation of the Plaza Del Mar bandshell, as the commission has heard before, we have our next concert this Saturday with the jazz band Nisa, which is local, and they will be performing at 1 o'clock at the bandshell. And then our next two concerts, one in July, the Music Academy, which will be really neat to have them come to our bandshell, and hopefully it'll be the first of many years that they do a free show there. And then the Primetime Band coming back at the end of August. We have a little bit of break in there because we've got Fiesta, which happens, and they take up a lot of space in Pershing and Plaza Del Mar for that event. I would also mention, although it's not in the staff report, we had it successful, the Juneteenth organizers held their annual celebration in Plaza Del Mar this year, and I believe it was highly successful as well. Great venue. If you had a chance to walk by, drive by, or hear about it and saw how they set the site up with the tents all facing in, the music, all of that activity, you recreated kind of like Alameda Plaza, that enclosed space for people to really enjoy a festival atmosphere without having to cross busy streets, without having to do a lot of things. And then obviously there's great parking. The Pershing Park parking lot makes it easy to access that site. And then the 4th of July is next Friday week, I should say, and that's something that we work hard on with the Waterfront Department to host. And there's music on the beach, which is funded separately through the Park Foundation, through some fundraising that private individuals do in the community, and a fireworks display, of course. So cross your fingers, it's not foggy, and it's actually a really good display. So after the 4th of July, if you run out of things to do at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, July 5th, you can join City Park staff and Channel Keeper picking up all the trash that's left on the beach, which increasingly we've become very efficient and effective. And I would give a shout out to folks that are doing broadcasting, including John Palmentary, reminding people to pick up their litter and put it in a box rather than leave it on the beach. So we're hoping people will do the same thing this year. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Great activities, great report as always. Any questions? I see a finger hovering. Commissioner Price.
That was me. Three things. First of all, you mentioned Beach City USA. Awesome. Full support. Who is the certifying body for that?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Price, I don't have the name off the top of my head, but I can send it to you because it's right here, but I can't tell you right this moment.
Okay.
And we went through the process of having the city council adopt a resolution, and they also issue a proclamation.
Okay.
But for the life of me, I can't think of the organization's name right now, but I will follow up with you.
Okay, thank you very much. Secondly, I attended the Juneteenth celebration. It was awesome. The organizers themselves came out and said that they used to have the celebration off of Gray Street, and they really enjoyed the change of venue because it did offer a dedicated music area and then also space for people to spread out. So very, very well done there. And then I also wanted to you may not have the number in front of you. How much do the fireworks cost? And I believe the city parks, it sounds like the Parks Department organizes the fireworks show. Any idea how much that costs?
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, we actually do not do that. The Waterfront Department and the Waterfront Department budget pays for the fireworks. I do not have a current number. So I would have to get back to you rather than taking a wild guess and being incorrect about it. I would say that prepping for the fireworks in West Beach, that takes a lot of effort too. If you spend any time in the West Beach neighborhood area, you see over the course of a number of days, the fencing, the prep, the setup, and so on and so forth. So, but I can follow up. I don't know what the contracted amount is this year.
Thank you very much.
All right. Yep, if there,
One comment. I did look up Santa Barbara weather today. 4th of July, 75 degrees and sunny. So hopefully it's accurate.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Well, on that happy note, I think I will go ahead and adjourn. So see you all next month.
Okay.